Live from Atlanta, I'm Lynda Kinkade. Zane and Vienna are off today. You are watching the second hour of One World. Great to have your company. Well, the clock is ticking down to what could be a hunger crisis for tens of millions of the most vulnerable people here in America. Tomorrow, for the first time ever, a critical lifeline that many rely on for basic survival is set to expire due to the government shutdown. SNAP is the nation's largest food assistance program, serving 42 million Americans, including 16 million children.
Honestly, sometimes I wonder if I'm failing as a mom, because that's hard. You know, your kids are hungry and you can't just hand them an apple when they're hungry or give them a peanut butter sandwich.
It's a lot. It's just like a piece of your livelihood getting taken away. Granted, I don't want to be on SNAP benefits the rest of my life, but it has carried us over this far. So yes, it's a big impact.
We don't know what we do. We're just going to pray to God that these politicians would make up their minds.
Well, many federal workers who have gone unpaid during the shutdown are now depending on food pantries, some of them just days away from missing their second paycheck. Well, all of this is prompting a surge in demand at food banks across the country, but they warn they can only provide a fraction of the meals supplied through government programs.
We stay out of the politics of it. All we know is that there are people who are facing food and nutrition insecurity. There are people who are facing hunger in our communities. And as a food bank, we don't want to see that. We want to see people getting the food that they need. We don't want to see people go hungry.
Well, amid all of this, Congress is nowhere to be seen. The Senate adjourned on Thursday and is not scheduled to return until Monday. House lawmakers are on an extended recess, with Speaker Mike Johnson refusing to call them back into session. Republicans blame Democrats for not passing a clean resolution to fund the government, but the Democrats want the bill to include extended health care subsidies that are set to expire next year, which will lead to skyrocketing costs for many. Well, President Trump is now calling for an end to the filibuster, which would eliminate the need for Democratic support to end the shutdown, an indication, perhaps, that he's not interested in negotiating. CNN's Pete Muntean joins us from Washington. But first, I want to go to our Kevin Liptak, who is live at the White House. Great to have you both with us. I want to start with you, Kevin. So President Trump is calling for this so-called nuclear option to end the filibuster. Just how viable is that to try and push this through without Democratic support?
Well, it's not at all clear that Republicans are even on board with this, and there's a reason they call it the nuclear option. It's viewed as something of a last resort, even by those in the majority, and it would have the effect of essentially incinerating precedent in the Senate. But President Trump says that now is the time. He says he's given it a lot of thought, including on that lengthy flight back from Asia, where he said that he was asked constantly why the U.S. government remains closed. I think he will have a hard time getting through to the Senate Majority Leader John Thune. He has consistently opposed the idea of removing the filibuster. A lot of Republicans say that this could essentially come back to haunt them and blow up in their face if Democrats at some point retain the majority in the Senate. He said as recently as earlier this month that he wasn't receiving pressure from President Trump or the White House to do away with the filibuster, but that has clearly now changed. And it comes, this presidential directive, at quite a sensitive moment. You know, there had been some glimmers that the two sides were coming closer to an agreement earlier this week. Now, to be sure, a deal at this point still seems out of reach, and the president's new instruction to do away with the filibuster could have the effect of upending that progress. And obviously this is coming as more and more Americans are starting to feel the effects of this shutdown, including those 42 million Americans who could see their food benefits evaporate starting tomorrow. You know, that's 1 in 8 Americans. It's a significant portion of the country who could see their food benefits start to dry up. The White House has said consistently that there's nothing they can do to unlock some of these emergency funds that do exist for these food assistance programs. That is being challenged in court, including today. There's a federal judge in Massachusetts who could rule whether the administration does need to go forward with providing some of these assistance programs, but it's having a major effect on the American people. What the White House has said is that this is Democrats' fault for not passing a clean extension of funding, and we heard earlier today from the president's top economist, Kevin Hassett, making those arguments. Listen to what he said.
It's just urgent that we open. As you've seen, the government employees union president has called on everybody to open. The airlines are calling on everybody to open. We certainly got to get air traffic controllers back to work before the Thanksgiving holiday. What the Democrats are doing right now is throwing a hissy fit because President Trump is so successful. And it needs to stop. The economic harm is real. It needs to stop.
Now, senators will be back in Washington on Monday evening, and they are butting up against that 35-day mark, which would make this the longest government shutdown in history.
Wow. It really puts it in perspective, Kevin, when you say 1 in 8 Americans rely on that crucial food assistance that will expire from tomorrow. I want to go to you, Pete, because airports around the country are also feeling the impacts, especially TSA workers, TSA employees and air traffic controllers, and of course, anyone traveling. What are you seeing in terms of delays, cancellations, and how bad could things get going into the Thanksgiving holiday?
It's going to get worse before it gets better. And the pressure really mounting from airlines now, saying that there has to be an end to this shutdown. And yesterday was probably the best proof yet. More than 7,000 flight delays reported Thursday, according to FlightAware. New York's LaGuardia, JFK, Newark topped the misery map, primarily due to bad weather. But the staffing shortages caused the FAA to impose delays for flights heading to Dallas-Fort Worth, a huge hub for American Airlines, Reagan National Airport outside of D.C., Orlando International Airport had one of the most dramatic air traffic control staffing alerts of the last month. And the alert went out around 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time last night, saying that airlines can, quote, expect a period of time in the evening when no arrivals would be able to land because there were no certified air traffic controllers available. Now, a source familiar with the situation tells me the FAA was able to get some controller supervisors into a critical radar facility there so flights could arrive into Orlando International Airport. But at one point, flights into Orlando were delayed an average of 3 hours because of the shortage. It's really the perfect example of why major airlines are now unanimously calling for Congress to immediately pass a clean continuing resolution, a clean CR, to get air traffic controllers working with pay again. Vice President J.D. Vance and Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy met with airline CEOs during a White House roundtable yesterday. And I want you to listen now to what United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby said after that meeting.
It has been 30 days. I also think it is time to pass a clean CR. Use that as the opportunity to get into a room behind closed doors and negotiate hard on the real and substantive issues that the American people want our politicians on both sides of the aisle to solve. But let's get a clean CR and get that negotiation done behind closed doors without the pressure and without putting the American workers and the American economy at risk.
Kirby there starting to sound like a Republican member of Congress. You know, I heard from so many people yesterday stuck on delayed flights. And today, on Friday, air travel is expected to tick up because it's the end of the week. It's Halloween. A lot of people may be making a 3-day weekend out of it. Thankfully, a lot of this is all taking place when the air travel numbers are pretty light before the holidays. And airline CEOs say there needs to be a fix to this shutdown so TSA workers, air traffic controllers can be working with pay by Thanksgiving. But Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says if this continues until then Thanksgiving air travel will be what he calls a disaster.
Absolute nightmare. Hopefully they can sort this out soon. Pete Muntean, Kevin Liptak, great to have you both with us. Thank you. Well, my next guest is Congressman Mike Haridopolos, a Republican from Florida. Good to have you with us, Congressman.
Thanks for the opportunity.
So hasn't this shutdown gone on long enough? Why aren't we seeing lawmakers debating right now to find a compromise to reopen the government?
Well, I'm incredibly frustrated. As you know, I voted yes to keep the government open in the House of Representatives. And our process here in America works where you pass a bill in the House where I serve, and now it's sent over to the Senate. At this point, the Senate Democrats are filibustering, stopping a vote from taking place to open up the government. We think the government should be open for all the reasons you just displayed, whether it be air traffic controllers, the military, people who need food here in America. It's a common sense thing to do what's called a clean CR. No politics, just continuing the spending we're on right now, and it'll make me work out a spending deal long term later in the year.
The Democrats, of course, argue that they're holding out because they want an extension to the healthcare subsidies, the Expanded Affordable Care Act subsidies that are due to expire at the end of the year. And if they do expire, healthcare premiums are likely to go up for everyone. Why won't Republicans debate that?
We are looking forward to that debate. We think we can reform the system that impacts around 24 million Americans, but there's also a healthcare system that impacts 165 million Americans called our private system. So it's not just that one group we're talking about, but there are reforms that are needed in healthcare. But first things first, let's open up the government. After all, American taxpayers are paying for the government. They deserve the services from the government as well. This is, as I think Mr. Bessett said before, this is just a temper tantrum. I don't know why they're not going along with the CR for this simple reason. When Joe Biden was president, when we had a clean CR, 13 different times the Democrats said, let's do it. I don't understand why they're playing games now, because they're truly impacting people's lives, whether it be for food or travel, let alone those people who protect our country in the military.
Yeah, and of course, the many federal workers, Congressman, who are going without pay right now. We heard from U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham saying that government shutdowns would end faster if members of Congress did not get paid until the government was reopened. Do you support that?
I sure do. And when this shutdown began, despite voting yes to keep the government open, I am not taking my pay. I think we need to lead by example. I'm appalled by some of the Democrat members who say, I've got a mortgage to pay. They too should understand what an air traffic controller or a member of the military is going through. I'm not taking my paycheck until we open the government back up. I hope that everyone who's in Congress would do the same, because people are hurting right now. And the hypocrisy is at this highest level right now. It's really frustrating. I'm a new member of Congress. I want to get things done. But first things first, open up the government and let's have a vigorous debate how we reform the broken Obamacare system, because the Obamacare system is way up in prices. That's why they need all these subsidies. And we can reform the system just like we did with our Medicaid system back in July. But to do that, we need to have the government open. And that's why I plead on your shows and others and say, come on, Democrats, be consistent. Do what you did 13 times during the Biden years. Open up the government and make sure our air traffic controllers, the people who check our baggage, let alone our military members, are paid for their good service.
Congressman, do you support calls to eliminate the Senate filibuster to break this stalemate?
At this time, remember, I'm a member of the House of Representatives. I stay in my lane. If Senate members want to proceed in that direction, I'm wary of it, because that could mean all types of changes to the Supreme Court, of course, let alone which states might enter the union or not, and some other issues. But that's something for the Senate to take care of. This is a really easy issue. A clean CR means no politics, not an advantage to Republicans, not an advantage to Democrats. That's why it's so baffling to me that the Senate Democrats won't vote to open up the government. We don't need to go to the more hyperbolic or more radical actions, which would be to end the filibuster. After all, as a U.S. history teacher myself at the college level, I think it's absolutely imperative that we have a system that looks out for the long-term aspects. That's what the United States Senate was designed to do. A little bit slower process, but one that protects the minority rights. But in this case, they've lost all common sense by closing down the government, hurting those most vulnerable people here in the United States.
Congressman, most opinion polls show that most Americans blame the Republicans for this shutdown. What do you say to the 42 million Americans who will no longer have access to food assistance programs come Saturday?
Well, first of all, I feel for them. And it's the reason why I'm not taking a paycheck, nor is my staff at this point. And it's a challenging situation. Again, let me be clear. Republicans in the House of Representatives voted yes to keep the government open. Every single Republican senator, with the exception of one, have voted to keep the government open. It's the Democrats who are saying no to opening up the government for the reasons you explained earlier. But first things first, as I think more people realize that it wasn't Republican votes that denied it being open. It's the Democrats using the leverage they have in the Senate It's just a shame to see this happen. And I feel for folks, and that's why we're doing everything in our power to say, let's reopen the government. And if I could add one last thing, before this whole mess even began, we went to the Democrats and said, let's do a clean CR, just like you all did 13 times in the Biden years, and let's have it until January. They said, no, let's have a clean CR, but make it end on November 21. We agreed. So there was a negotiation before this whole mess began. I just wish they'd stick by their promise that they made just a couple months ago.
Well, we hope this ends soon. Congressman Mike Haridopolos, appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Well, coming up, as the king strips his brother Andrew of his royal titles, we look at what's next for the family of Virginia Giuffre.